Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you how to use the Milesdown review sheets and how I used it to get a 524 on the MCAT. The Milesdown review sheets are essentially this resource that a Redditor named Milesdown created, and they're really useful, very condensed notes to study for the MCAT. When I took the MCAT, I thought that everything that I needed to know was on these review sheets. There's about 100 pages in this document, and I want to show you the exact step-by-step approach that I use to approach these review sheets, and then also how I recommend my students to approach this and how they kind of boosted their score by understanding the material a lot better. So this is just what's worked for me and what's worked for my students, and I want to show you kind of how it works. So I'm just going to exit out and show you. First thing you do is Google this Milesdown 100-page document, and it's this med pathway link. You open this up, and there's this PDF, and it should say revised 2019 or whenever it's revised by, depending on when you are watching this video. And then you can see that there's a table of contents, and if you see, it goes up to like 89. So it's not too long. It's a 92-page document, and so I think that everything you need to know is in these review sheets. And so that being said, I tell people that, it's only 100 pages, and they're like, oh, 100 pages? That means it's like pretty easy to get through in a day or two. And if you look on Reddit, there are people who say that they get through this whole document in a day or so. And honestly, I have no idea how they do that. I wish somebody told me that, it takes weeks to get through this document, not days. It might take 2 months or something, but this is a really long document, even though it's just 92 pages, because if you go to any page, you can see that there's a lot of information on it. There's a lot of diagrams that you kind of have to understand to memorize. And I'd say that, you don't want to just know these surface level. You kind of want to actually understand every single page and every single concept that it's trying to teach you. So obviously, something like genetics and evolution takes an entire month to go through in your college classes. And so how is it possible that you're going to try to condense all this information and go through it in just a few days? My goal is to try to show you like the study strategy that I would use if I was studying today, and what I used to get a 524 using this document. And essentially the first thing you want to do is kind of figure out what is the first section you want to start on. So today I'm just going to start on organic chemistry, right? And let's say that you want to learn organic chemistry in a little bit more depth. So first thing I would identify is I'm going to try to get through 3 or 5 pages of organic chemistry today, right? And even that's a lot. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whiteboard. You can use a piece of paper and a pen if you want. I just like whiteboards because I can erase it pretty much after. And my goal is not to take notes that I'm going to refer back to later. My goal is just kind of to use writing as a process of kind of understanding the material. And so I'm going to basically, let's say I'm going through the UPAC naming conventions, right? So I'm going to read step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to close this document, or just exit out of this window, and then with my whiteboard and my pen, I'm just going to write step 1 this, step 2 this, and I'm going to try to recall from memory what I just learned. And basically I'm just testing myself on what I just learned, if I actually understood it. And if I didn't understand it, then obviously I have to do some more follow-up work. But this thing is just to kind of make sure that you're actually actively focusing on the process of reading, because if your brain knows that you're adding a testing component to the end of whatever you're doing or to whatever you're reading, then your brain is going to have to focus a little bit more. And so the first thing that I do is I'd go through one of these sections. So let's go to a different thing. Let's say I want to understand stereoisomers, right? So I'll go through this section and understand everything that I need to know about stereoisomers, and hopefully the information that I learned in organic chemistry class, I'm kind of remembering by reviewing this, and I'm understanding enantiomers and optical activity and racemic mixtures and meso compounds, and I'm going through this and I'm like, okay, I think I understand it. What I'm going to do now is maybe I'll look at just the definitions. I'll write them down on my whiteboard, and then I'll close this window, and then I'll just write next to these definitions what I remember, and as few words as possible. I don't want to copy everything, but all I might say is like enantiomers, and then on my whiteboard I might write like mirror image different compound or something, right? And so I can just like very simply optical activity, D or L, maybe that's all I write, right? But all you want to do is kind of in your mind create these simple simple associations that you'll remember. And by testing yourself after reading a small section, you're going to kind of get through this a little bit faster and get through this by actually remembering more and more. So that's step one, is reading through it, closing the window, and testing yourself after reading through a small section. And it's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning because you're adding a little extra layer of work that you wouldn't otherwise do when you're reading something, but that's going to be pretty helpful, I think. Okay, the next thing is using Google Images, using Wikipedia, and using YouTube to understand what doesn't make sense. So this is actually a strategy that I learned from I got some tutoring this year from my fourth year med student because there were some things in med school that wasn't making sense to me. And one of the ways that he kind of taught me to learn is what he would do is he would go to Google Images after every single concept and kind of find an image that sort of helped him memorize the information, because our brains are really not that great at storing a collection of words. What we are really good at is associating a concept with an image. And so let's say like an enantiomer, right? I'm just going to Google image it, and after I've kind of learned what an enantiomer is, I'm just going to Google image it and make sure like I can find an image that really helps me. So like I think this is a good one. So actually maybe this one is good, right? So I found an image and I can kind of see like, okay, let me try to rotate this in my mind. And if I rotate it this way, then I can see like it's not the same compound, right? It's a different compound. And so these are two mirror images, but they're not superimposable. And so I found an example of an enantiomer, and so I'm going to remember it now. And that's kind of what you want to do with these concepts, is just find a Google image that kind of helps you remember it. Let's say, let me find you another example. So I think, I think like, let's say you are remembering what SN2 reactions are. I would just go to Google image and search up SN2 reactions and make sure that, okay, this is an SN2 reaction, right? And I want to make sure that I like just look through this, and because there's an image that's helping me associate, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what SN2 reaction is, right? So the first step is to kind of test yourself and make sure you understand the concept. The second step is to find an associated image or like an associated video from YouTube for things that are really confusing to you that you don't exactly remember, like SN2 reactions. That took me a little bit of time to remember what is that exactly. And so I found Google Images, and then if I needed to, I would watch a YouTube video to kind of solidify that concept in my brain. That's step two, is using Google or Google Images or Wikipedia or YouTube to understand what doesn't make sense. And again, I want to kind of emphasize that this is only to understand what doesn't make sense. If you do this with everything, then you're not going to get through the document, but only for things that like you're really confused on, maybe like 15% of the things you're reading, you should kind of use this strategy as a way to double down and remember the things that you don't remember. Okay, then third step is after you've reviewed whatever you reviewed. So let's say that you got through 3 to 4 pages of organic chemistry in a day. So you spent like a couple of hours, you learned page 1, page 2, and page 3, right? I don't think that's terrible to expect out of you. You've kind of like, you feel pretty comfortable that if you had to test yourself, you would understand this, right? So now you want to kind of go to a place where you can find questions that are associated with these 3 pages. And if you want to find those resources, you can watch another video that I have about my favorite resources. But for now, like UWorld would be a pretty acceptable place. Maybe if you have like some textbook like Kaplan or the Berkeley Review, Exam Crackers, those will have questions, and you want to find the questions that are associated with the concepts you just learned, right? And do like 10, 15 questions at the end of your day to kind of just make sure that you understood these concepts. And hopefully you're getting a good score on these on those questions, because kind of understand the concepts that you went through, but like also hopefully you're getting some of them wrong so that you know like, okay, these are the things that I need to solidify in my memory. And this is kind of something that I call question-based learning, where you're kind of using the problems that you're doing to make sure that you understand the material and that you're going back and learning the content based on what you're getting wrong and what you're not fully understanding. And I think if you do that and you kind of go through that every day in a kind of a systemized process, that's a really good way to learn all the content really well and really efficiently and make sure that it's all stored in your head. Okay, the last thing that I would say is, and this is kind of optional, is I would spend like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and after you've gone through the couple of pages that you've done today, that you've kind of Google image some of the things that doesn't make sense to you. You kind of looked at YouTube for the things that don't make sense to you, and you've done some practice problems associated with these questions, with these pages. The last thing that I would do is, like, I would set a timer for like 15, 20, 30 minutes or something, and I would try to review the previous pages that I've already reviewed in past days. Now, obviously, as you go on, and like you're in week 4 of your revision, and like you've already gone through 50 of these 92 pages, it's going to be really difficult to kind of go back and see everything. But like, I would just kind of like, okay, quickly, like, oh, I remember what stereoisomers are. I remember what relative absolute configuration is. Oh yeah, what are Fisher projections again? I'm going to quickly read that and be like, oh, I remember that. And then like kind of just like review the things that you've already, oh, I remember, what are indicators again? Oh yeah, that's the thing that changes color. And then what's the titration setup? Oh yeah, I remember that. And kind of just like set a timer for 30 minutes or so and just go back through so you're not forgetting things that you've learned in the past. And that's kind of a way to do a little bit of spaced repetition, spaced review, and learn the things that you're forgetting. Another version of this that you can do is just do Anki, and that'll kind of just handle the whole spaced revision aspect for you, and so you won't have to worry about going back through it. So you can also just pair this method up of going through the Milesdown review sheets with the Milesdown Anki deck and unsuspend cards as you learn them, and spend like 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day going through the Anki cards so that you can review what you've already reviewed in the past few days and keep unsuspending more and more cards as you go through this document. But I think this is kind of the way that I wish I systematized the whole process from the very beginning and went through this Milesdown deck, this Milesdown review sheets and the Milesdown Anki cards. But I mean, it wasn't. It was kind of like a process of experimenting with myself as well as with my students to kind of figure out the system that works the best, at least for me and my students. And this is kind of the way that worked the best. And so that's kind of what I'm recommending. Obviously, find a system that works best for you. This is just a system that worked best for me. And I think through that 4-step process, I'll show it to you again. Through these 4 steps, you can really make the most out of Milesdown review sheets. Again, it's a completely free resource, both the Anki cards and the review sheets. And I think if you do this, you'll be absolutely ready for the whole content revision for the MCAT. And I'm going to add the fact that Anki cards. And again, if you do this 4 steps, I think you'll be really ready for the MCAT, especially for getting ready with practice questions. And remember that this is just for your content review phase. After this, you have to do practice questions to make sure that you're ready for the exam. But overall, I really hope that this was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave that below and I'll get back to you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.